Hey, what's going on everybody, and welcome back to another video. Not many people know about this, but there is actually a mod that allows you to play Escape from Tarkov in a single player mode, or like an offline perspective, a single player experience, which is a lot of fun. And this is what I've been playing. This is my alternative to Escape from Tarkov due to just the awful state that Escape from Tarkov is in right now. Now, there are a lot of questions that revolve around the idea of single player Tarkov. One of the main ones being, is single player Tarkov bannable or illegal? And we're going to get into that here in a second. I sort of want to talk about what single player Tarkov actually is. SPT AKI or SP Tarkov has been around for quite some time now. I think it was a couple of years ago I downloaded and tried out SP Tarkov for the first time, and I created videos on my YouTube channel, which kind of, I guess, sparked my imagination and made me make videos again. And it did bring in, you know, quite a bit of people, and it did fairly well for a while, and then eventually I changed, I guess, my core content. I had other focuses, but getting into it a bit later. But my videos did get copyright striked, which kind of ties into the whole, is, you know, single player Tarkov safe? And we'll get into that here in a second, but you can kind of see how this all ties in. Now, in order to get SP Tarkov and download and play it, you do need an active, legitimate copy of the game to properly play SP Tarkov. And I know there's going to be people out there, they're going to say, you know, they're going to say something down in the comments about how, you know, there's other ways to get around that. And we're not going to talk about that. And I'd appreciate if nobody, you know, gave any ideas. I'm not going to be, you know, promoting a, you know, a illegitimate version of Escape from Tarkov. You know, we're not going to do that. I have EOD. In 2017, I purchased Edge of Darkness version of Escape from Tarkov, and I have been a pretty big fan of Escape from Tarkov since the beginning. I can't say the same nowadays because of, you know, some things that we'll get into, but I have, you know, been relatively, I've had a lot of passion for Escape from Tarkov. But with that being said, you know, we're not going to talk about any other ways to get your hands on, you know, a single player offline version of the game. I'm not going to be promoting any of that. But either way, single player Tarkov works very similarly to the online version of the game in the sense that there are AI PMCs with a variety of random gear. They would have pretty much what you'd expect a player to have on them, and it can get a little intense. Sometimes they spawn in with things that are pretty crazy, so you could, you know, spawn in at level 1 and take down a PMC with a bunch of crazy gear. But there are mods out there. There are mods for the mod, believe it or not, and you can kind of change things around and, you know, give it more of a single player feel. I know there's a mod that allows you to, I guess, start out, when you start out fresh, all the PMCs will kind of have similar gear to you, so you can't just kill one guy and get like a kitted M4 or, you know, a crazy SVD sniper and, you know, all this stuff that you know, see not too often in the main game, depending on, you know, how early in the wipe you are. But there are ways to get around that, but there are AI PMCs, AI players. With that, the flea market actually works with fake players or bots up on the market. They put up items, and I think there's a mod, but this might be in the main game now, which allows you to place your own items on the market and sell those, but I'm not entirely sure with that one. And like I said before, essentially, single player Tarkov just provides an offline version of the main game, and it does save your progress. Now, you can't carry this progress over into the main game. Obviously, I know there's been some confusion with this, but single player Tarkov is a complete, you know, separate iteration of the game. It's in a completely different folder and all that. Now, why would you want to choose to play single player Tarkov? And this is another question, and a lot of players are giving up on Escape from Tarkov right now, and a lot of this is due to the cheaters. There's a lot of videos out now kind of talking about how many cheaters are actually present in the game, and I think the number was 50% or more, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. I'm not entirely sure on this, so somebody can correct me, but the fact is there are obviously a lot of cheaters in Escape from Tarkov. And with this, we've got things like, you know, desync issues, which have been in the game for years now, and players pretty much just taking advantage, you know, of this awful desync. And, you know, that's the way to play the game. That's just, you know, how it is. If you want to win a gunfight, you got to take advantage of the issues that are there. It's pretty much the meta, and that's just how it is, and it's unfortunate, but like I said, you know, it is what it is. Another thing, single player Tarkov is pretty good for newer players players that are learning the game, without, they're not having the challenge of fighting other players. They're not going to be losing progress. So it's really good for people like that, the newbies coming in who just want to learn the game before getting into the online environment. And one thing I kind of wanted to bring up regarding, a reason to play single player Tarkov is there are a lot of people across the world that don't have stable internet or don't have internet at all. Maybe they don't have a good PC, and being able to play the original version, the online version of the game, is just not feasible to them, but they really want to play Escape from Tarkov. They think it's an awesome game. So single player Tarkov is their alternative, which I think is great. It allows players to play offline that, they can't play online, or, maybe their internet goes out for a week or a couple weeks, and, this is how they can, play the game if they want to play the game. One other thing is, at this moment in time, and I think it's been like this for quite some time now, is that Escape from Tarkov is an extremely competitive game. And it's not, meant to be a competitive game. It's not a competitive title, and you really cannot play Escape from Tarkov casually. Maybe back in the day that was the case, but the game isn't what it used to be. You try to play the game casually, you could log on for a couple hours in a day, and that just isn't enough to make any progress. If you want to make progress, you kind of have to be that hardcore player. You have to be that competitive player. Otherwise, you're not going to be making that progress that other players, will be having like a massive advantage over you. I remember back in the day specifically, and I was still pretty competitive, but obviously the game kind of had this idea that it was this, very immersive, tactical, survival-esque hardcore looter shooter or battle simulator. And the devs even confirmed at one point that their idea for the game was like a team versus team combat sim or military sim with survival elements, and it definitely doesn't feel like that game anymore. If you're not playing the game like it's Call of Duty, bunny hopping everywhere, taking advantage of every little thing at every corner, you are just going to be at a massive disadvantage. You don't follow the meta, you don't play the game super fast-paced. A lot of those people just aren't going to be doing as good as the other types of players, the other player base. And that's just how it is. And it's true. It's unfortunate, but the game isn't what it used to be back in the day. And the community, the player base is very different than what it used to be. Now, getting to the main question here, is single player Tarkov bannable or illegal? Now, Nikita, the lead developer of Battlestate Games, has come out and said, I believe it was on Reddit, that they are strongly against single player Tarkov or SPT, and that it is bannable. The product was made illegally without their permission, and they say that they will take action, I guess, at a later date. Now, I will say this, and this is what I've read, this is what I've heard, is that technically it is bannable if they are to find out in some way, if they're able to find out you're playing single player Tarkov, your main account can get banned. As far as you having any legal action against you, I don't think so. Now, the only way you could really get banned from this is if you accidentally install single player Tarkov in your main Escape from Tarkov folder. So as long as you're following the correct installation guide or I guess instructions, you should be okay, and there isn't anything to worry about. Now, with that being said, download and play single player Tarkov at your own risk. It's one of the reasons why I'm not going to be providing any types of links in the description for SP Tarkov. Google does exist, guys, and it's pretty easy to find this mod. Now, I want to put this into perspective, and this is just another way to kind of look at it, but Battlestate Games has sold quite a few copies of Escape from Tarkov just so these players can play single-player Tarkov. They're not even touching the main game. So that's just to kind of put it into perspective here, that people don't even want to play, Battlestate Games' idea of Escape from Tarkov. They want to play the offline single-player version. And the only reason I could honestly see this being bad financially for Battlestate Games is if eventually they plan on maybe releasing some type of different mode, like a single player mode or a DLC for Escape from Tarkov that, focuses on a single player or an offline version or a co-op version. But at the end of the day, I don't see how single player Tarkov hurts anybody. It just provides an extra avenue, an alternative for players that either maybe can't play the game or are sick of playing, the monstrosity that Escape from Tarkov has become, and they rather have a more casual Escape from Tarkov experience. Now, there is one thing that I want to bring up, and this is kind of a downside. I've only read this, I've only heard this, I don't know if this is actually correct, and I don't even think it matters. to be honest, but it has been mentioned that single-player Tarkov has given avenues to assist in developing cheats. And Battlestate Games has actually kind of came out and said this, and it's one of the reasons why they don't want this, you know, this mod to be advertised, and one of the reasons why it's bannable, and, you know, they're going to go after it for legal action is because people are using it to create cheats. But let's be honest, there's so many cheat developers out there. I don't really think, you know, removing single player Tarkov is gonna help that much. Even if that's the case, I don't even know if this is true or not, if people are using this to develop cheats. Now, getting into what I said about my account kind of getting copyright striked earlier, is Battlestate Games has copyright striked a lot of my videos when I used to do single player Tarkov videos, and that was sort of the focus, and I moved away from Escape from Tarkov videos over time, but obviously Battlestate Games would eventually come back and still target some of those videos, and it really wasn't a big deal. I think they targeted quite a few until one time, it was one early morning, and I was still awake, I didn't go to sleep yet, and within an hour, they copyright striked me twice. The first time I was like, okay, this isn't a big deal, you know, it was kind of normal, like I still got a bunch of Escape from Tarkov videos on my channel, you know, this is gonna happen, and I didn't really think anything of it. And then they copyright strike me a second time, and I essentially went through and just removed every single one of my Escape from Tarkov videos in fear that they were gonna try to get my YouTube account completely terminated. I even removed my Escape from Tarkov videos that weren't based upon the mod, the single player Tarkov mod, so I had to remove a lot of videos that held some value to me, which was disappointing. So they purposefully, at least from my perspective, they were purposefully trying to get my YouTube channel just completely removed for creating videos, I guess promoting single player Tarkov. So as you can imagine, I mean, they are in their right to do this, but as you can imagine, I'm not really a huge fan of Battlestate Games. This is basically their way of censorship, and I'm not the only creator they've done this to. They have done this to a lot of other creators. For example, I don't know if you guys have heard of Blue Drake 42, but he had a single player Tarkov video at one point, and that got copyright striked. He's talked about that before, and not related to single player Tarkov, but a content creator named Aroctic, I think is what his name is, but he had quite a few of his videos copyright striked just because he had a negative opinion on Escape from Tarkov or Battlestate Games, so they censored him, right? Which is pretty ridiculous. I think a lot of us can agree that they have some shady business practices. But either way, I'm not really a huge fan of Battlestate Games, and I think a lot of people can agree with me. Not maybe not for the same reasons, but the game isn't in the best state. And if you're looking for an alternative, single player Tarkov is great. Either way, let me know down in the comments your thoughts on single player Tarkov or Escape from Tarkov in general, Battlestate Games. I'd love to know you guys' thoughts. That's going to be the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for sticking to the end, and we will see you in the next one. Thank you so much.